Hello and welcome to the special edition of ETBFSI FinTech Diary. And I have with me Mr. Sameer Nigam, the founder and CEO PhonePe. Sameer, glad to have you on FinTech Diary.
Thanks, Amol. Always a pleasure.
I have some interesting questions for you because I have been seeing, the banner or the small flap of PhonePe flapping everywhere in the cabs and at the merchants and everywhere. And I think there is some news about PhonePe always in last couple of months, in fact. So to begin with, recently you launched PhonePe Pulse. So let me start with PhonePe Pulse. What is that you have analyzed, out of 20 billion transactions? What does the data suggest? What is your reading about that data?
I think for us, we've been looking at this data in parts over the last 3 or 4 years. We look at a ton of data. I think the project started as an internal analytics team project where they took a bunch of data. I think it was mobile recharge data or some category, and they put it on an India map. And I think it was just more like a hack. They said, "Look who's doing recharges," and then there's a bunch of internal sort of teams that got really excited about, hey, this looks really cool, this looks really interactive. And then the Corpcom team came and said, you know what, we keep talking about democratization of data. Media keeps asking us what's happening, what's people's market share, what's penetration looking like, how many users, what's happening during COVID. And the challenge came back to the tech team saying, can you build out a platform and open source all of our data? What if we did that? This couple of months of very, very interesting discussions internally, as you can imagine, from a competitive standpoint, from an audit standpoint. We had to make sure everything's kosher on the privacy front. We had to build a parallel data lake, 20 billion transactions. We had to actually build very, very robust systems there to make sure when we open up the APIs for developers, they hold up under scale. So it's not just an analytics website, it's a full platform that we've opened up. And on the analysis side of it, I hope you'll play around with it and you'll find your own fun facts. What I just find is, if I look at the user penetration of digital payments, if I look at how diffused the heat map is, I think that's a fantastic sign. That's telling you that digital payments has truly reached the innermost parts of India. And yet, when you go down to a district level, you can tell pin code by pin code where there's a gap. And for us, for example, whenever we find a gap, I call up my offline team and I tell them there's probably not enough merchants accepting digital payments there right now. When I look at the state level, like Leh and Ladakh, you can overlay the state population density, or you can take the state population as the denominator and then see the transactions and start seeing a per capita trend. That's a very, very interesting way of looking at the data again. So without taking away from the hard work that the team's done, I'll actually just say, go to pulse.phonepay.com, look at the data, drill down, play around. You'll find a treasure trove of facts.
How, the user manual that you're going to create out of data will actually also help the industry. We have seen the great, what you can say, the revolution from the credit companies and specifically the digital lenders in terms of how they're using data and, disbursing the credits or, doing the alternate credit scoring for the customers. So when you make this available for the industry, what kind of growth, what kind of changes do you see specifically?
So I think from a privacy standpoint, obviously consumer level individual data we can't put out, right? That will be a major issue. I think the way to think about how to use this data for policymakers, government agencies who are trying to promote digital payments more or use cases more, they'll be able to go in at a district level or a PIN code level and see, are we doing well? How are we tracking over time? There's a time series you can develop. For the regulators who are looking at both the macro and the micro sort of story evolving, again, they can look at the trends both over time. They can look at the trends from the consumer side, the merchant side, the use case side. Platforms like BBPS, when they see how our recharge and bill payments have evolved, they'll get a good sense for what is the level of digitization of bill payments in India. So they know which categories need to be sort of developed or made more. Then there's a lot of academic think tanks and companies like iSpirit, for example, public-private collaboration vehicles, as I think of them, who can start imagining the new types of platforms that can come in. Account aggregator is a great example. DigiLocker is another one. I think the idea was to actually open up a lot more questions than to answer a bunch of questions. I think the answers are more in terms of factoids and fun facts and insights. That's the easy part. I'm actually opening once the developer APIs are there. Folks at the IITs and the IIMs and colleges will actually build some really, really cool visualization layers of their own and reveal other facts that we have not thought about yet. So I think idea was to just put out data for data's sake and let the market go where it wants to go with it.
Okay, sounds good. Now there is, a very specific question to PhonePe, and if you could give me some perspective here, if I'm not wrong, you are doing some 1.5 billion transactions per month. What I want to understand is obviously this number is mind-boggling, no doubt about it. But if you could tell me, how does this number actually reflect or translate into a business terms or business values? Or in other words, what kind of business value this number is actually creating for a company like PhonePe?
So I won't comment on the financials. They are healthy, by the way. I'm very happy with where we are 5 years in, path to profitability and growth. That said, there are principally three types of the highest level revenue streams that we have. First and foremost, on the PhonePe app itself. When people come and do anything from a mobile recharge to buying or recharging their DTH or a FASTag or buying a Google Play Store recharge or buying gold and financial services, we play the role of a platform distributor. So we make a distribution fees from whoever we are actually enabling sales for. That's a classic distributor model. That's the biggest part of our revenue stream because we are a very large destination. More than 50 million people come on the PhonePe app every day, about 130, 140 million times a day. The second is advertising. Again, it's opening up really fast, but we are trying to strike the balance between we don't give data to advertisers, so we can't do retargeting and other stuff. That's a philosophy choice we made. We are a payments app, so we need to make sure that no data is ever being used. But we have just sheer volume. Advertisers want to sort of push their products, their rewards, their coupons to our customers. So we make a lot of money on advertising now. And the third, obviously, is on payment services, where we power payment solutions on third-party apps, sites, stores, malls, everywhere. We have over 21 million merchants. Now that number today is muted because of the zero MDR law on UPI. But we also have, I think, almost 70, 80 million cards on file, and we make money there. And we also have, you're a PPI issuer, and we, again, have tens of millions of wallet customers. We make some money there. So it's actually pretty nicely diffused.
Before I, ask you a specific question, and I'm sure you must have answered it to everybody, what next, or what is the future? I mean, that question I will take it at the end, but partly if you could tell me, because you also ventured into insurance, you're also doing into investments. So how are you actually building your whole financial stack? What are the additional layers that you are adding to your own existing business?
So if I take a 10-year view, one is I should be able to offer financial services of all kinds to everybody. There's the all kinds and there's the everybody. For the everyone, and I include the last mile farmer who today can't walk into a branch easily. I need to offer all services digitally. There are principally 4 components to that journey. Identity, for which eKYC has run into some challenges, but I believe in a project called KYC Setu, eKYC will again become the norm for regulated businesses. I think that will land by next year. Digital payments, something that every Indian can do using a mobile phone. We are well on our way. We play a direct role. We have 300 million users. I think in the next 5 years, every Indian with a smartphone and data will migrate towards making mobile-based payments. Whether it's UPI or a card is different, but they'll be making payments using their phone. The third is all your documentation from the government agencies. That is your POI and POA data. That's coming from DigiLocker. The government's basically the platform. The fourth critical one was all your financial data. And that's now finally coming through account aggregator. Because that ecosystem is so nascent, just like when we entered UPI on day zero, we decided to get in and apply for an account aggregator license so we can build the enabling infrastructure, play a direct role, not just for ourselves, but every other financial information user, FIU. So that's what we are doing on the enabling front, working on KYC Setu, working on account aggregator, leading on UPI. On the what products we will build out, we are taking a slower approach because we want to understand whether we have the right kind of data to put out products at the right price point of the right kind for Bharat and India at the same time. There's no one size fits all in India. And we started out with mutual funds, again, with the easiest products, starting with tax and life, and we went all the way into balance funds and put out our own sort of products called super funds. We will get into stockbroking. Someday we will get into building an AMC. In insurance, again, we started with Sachet. Now we've launched life, we've launched health, we've launched two-wheeler and four-wheeler. We are happy that we are one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing insurtech company in India. And we will get into lending and other products there as well.
Okay. Noted your point, Sameer. So, again, what has happened in last couple of years, specifically in the fintech space is the companies, those who are operating in the payment space, gradually shifted towards the credit because lending became more attractive. The competition was huge in the payment space or something like that. And that's how it happened. So considering PhonePe and also the other payment companies, if you tell me, I mean, I would like you to tell us, what is the next for the payment companies in terms of the revenue, in terms of the profitability? Because the point is that the number are mind-boggling, as I suggested. I said the TMVs or all the transaction numbers. But when revenue is limited, the profit is not on the radar. What will make these payment companies sustainable?
So two things. I believe that payment companies should be able to charge for payment aggregation and gateway services. Otherwise, this market won't grow. That is a fact, regardless of whether they diversify into other businesses. It's like saying if banking were free and a bank has to do everything else, that's not a healthy banking industry. Payments is no different than any other industry. The second part to it is, given payments data, especially in India where it's an asset-light market, we need flow-based lending, especially on the consumer side, on the MSME side. I think it's a natural adjacency for a lot of payment companies to try and get into. I think a lot of people are assuming just because you are succeeding on payments, you will succeed in lending. I think that's a fallacy. People need to be careful because lending is a completely different ballgame. And that's why we always said lending will typically be the last category we enter on financial services. Once we've entered insurance, had some learnings, entered financial wealth solutions, we will now start looking at lending in 2022 because I think we've entered the others and hopefully don't make rookie mistakes.
Okay. Again, valid points, Sameer, and thanks for sharing that information. But is it that now, the payment companies also realized, obviously those who didn't want to compete with payment shifted to credit or added credit, but now the existing payment companies realize that they need to add different layers, whether credit, whether insurtech, whether mutual funds, whether investments. Is that the way going forward for all the payment companies, all the fintech companies operating in payment space?
I don't know if payment companies are going towards lending at the expense of payments. If that's happening, that again is because there's structurally they're not able to make money in payments. Again, you have a law like zero MDR, which makes it hard. So I don't know if it's need-based or it's opportunity-based. My gut says that lending as an opportunity is very, very attractive. So you'll see a lot of payment companies trying to enter. I hope it's not at the expense of payment solutions because India needs a lot of people playing in this market. It's a large market. Thank you.
That was a very short and a crisp answer. Okay, I will not really hear more on that part. But again, I want you to, share your observation. The kind of rally that is there in the fintech market right now, which is heading towards the stock market. A lot of companies are going for an IPO. I mean, is it that the fundraising rally has over and now, everybody wants to go to, encash the value from the stock market? How do you observe this?
I'm the worst person in this market to ask. We barely just spun off after 5 years. Okay. For 5 years, was letting the Flipkart founders do the fundraising. Not what excites me, not what I care about. I'm very happy that the market has opened up. The IPO market's opened up for startups in India. Right. I'm thrilled for Zomato and I'm thrilled for people, even competitors who are filing, that liquidity is coming. It's validation of the fact that India is now ready for its own ecosystem to develop all the way to IPOs. That was long overdue, and I think that's fantastic. But we're not there yet. We're 5 years in. So I think if you're asking me whether it's PhonePe jumping into the bandwagon, no. I think it's a great time to be in India though. It's great if startup after startup is saying that I'm going to raise my capital in the public market now or give long-term exits. I mean, exits to long-term investors in the public markets now. I think ecosystems come of age.
We have been, I mean, the whole world is praising the FinTech rally in India, the kind of innovation that we have been creating. And the one great thing is a lot of foreign investors are pumping in huge money into the FinTech. Now, though, we are being praised a lot globally. I mean, I myself have met a lot of people at events like Cybos and Singapore FinTech Festival and even the World Economic Forum. People have really praised the FinTechs. But what I have been seeing here, Sameer, is, and if you could guide me, most of the fintechs are absolutely India oriented. Do you see a scope for Indian fintechs to go at least in Asia and bang the doors and become as successful as in India? I mean, obviously one or two fintech have tried, but they're very small over there. So do you see that Indian fintechs will also raise the flag high in the global map going ahead?
We've had global investors since day zero, and with people like Walmart and others on our cap table, we had the opportunity to go global for a while. And there was a time about a year and a half, 2 ago when we were looking at it. I'll be perfectly honest. I think, and we've told our board that we're going to be India focused now for the next 10 years, because when I actually look at the opportunity to really transform, just both at an entrepreneurial mission level as well as a market opportunity level, both now, right? When you're on home turf as an entrepreneur, and you can solve for 120, 130, 140 crore people, I see no reason why anyone should be in a rush to go global. I have none. I've worked abroad for 11 years in my life. I came back, had a blast working in the States when I was there. And I've come to India and I'm having a blast here. And I'm actually enjoying it even more here right now because I'm building for my home market. So I don't think that, again, there should be a FOMO to get out and go global.
Okay. Thanks for that note, Sameer. And my last question, is specifically about PhonePe. So what next from here? Where do you see PhonePe in next 2 to 3 years? What kind of expansions plans you are thinking? What is the strategy that you are going to adopt? What are the plans on the table for PhonePe in next 2 to 3 years?
See, I think we have a very simple vision tagline, right? It's Karte Ja, Badhte Ja. And the motto is liberalize progress. To that end, in 3 years, we will enter many, many different financial service categories and try to be a force for good in bringing inclusion where our payment customers are today. 80% of my customers are in tier 2 and beyond. We want to bring financial services of the highest quality to everybody there. That's one. Second, we are at the core a platforms company, and we will want to build out more platforms. Like I mentioned, I mean, entering UPI on day zero is one, account aggregators two. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll put out more platforms. Pulse is exactly that. Pulse is today very, very nascent, but in the next couple of years, we'll put out more data sets, more APIs, and let people build off it.
Okay, I think that was too good, Sameer. Thanks for your note, and thank you so much for taking part in ETBFSI's conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your views.